Young man, I came here to thank you, and also to discuss your question from earlier. If you hadn't told me about your life, if you hadn't run into that fight, I would have been a worthless bystander watching from the crowd. You told me you didn't have a power, so when I saw this timid, quirkless boy try to save a life, it inspired me to act too. Young man, you too can become a hero.
Yo, what's up everybody? It's your boy Reggie here, back with you for another video. Welcome back to the House of Animation, where we have discussions and reviews about our favorite anime and cartoons. And in today's video, we're going to be discussing My Hero Academia, but not just My Hero Academia. We're going to be talking about the power system within their world, Quirks. We're going to go through everything you need to know about Quirks, where the name originated from, how Quirks work, the classifications. We're going to go through all of that. But before we do, please make sure to like, comment, subscribe to this video if you like this type of content. And without any further ado, let's drop the intro. So to start out, let's talk about My Hero Academia's quirk system overall, because it's actually one of the most unique power systems in all of anime. It's much different than the typical anime power system. It's actually more in line with the westernized power systems because it's more in line with superpowers. See, in the My Hero Academia world, everybody's quirk is unique, or at least functions differently, where no two quirks are exactly the same. And because no two quirks are the same, it actually gives a lot more variety and uniqueness with each of the battles. But to really understand quirks, we're gonna have to start from the beginning with the term quirk and where does it come from. So during the time humans started manifesting powers in the My Hero world, quirks were originally called meta abilities. And during the time, because it was a small subset of humanity, these people were discriminated against. Now, during the early days of meta abilities, a woman actually gave birth to a child who was being discriminated against because of his abilities. And it was during that time that she asked people not to discriminate against her son and that his powers was just a quirk of his. And over the years, that term just stuck. So this woman is actually called the mother of quirks because she's the one who originated the name. And the term quirk is generally used to describe somebody with a unique ability that is distinct to each and every person. So now that we understand where the term quirk comes from, let's talk about how you acquire a quirk. So the general way to acquire a quirk is by having one or both parents who already have quirks, and then that quirk's being passed down to the child. Now there are some rare occasions where one or both parents will have quirks and the child won't have a quirk, such as our main character Izuku, but those cases are extremely rare. On average, a child's quirk will awaken around 4 or 5 years old. And the way quirks are passed down are much like hair and eye color. Just like within any gene from a child and a parent, there are certain quirks that are more dominant than others. But oftentimes, you can also have new quirks that are generated from both of the prior parents' quirks. For example, with Bakugo, his father actually had a quirk that allowed him to create explosions, while his mother had a quirk where she was able to exude nitroglycerin from her pores. So the combination of those two quirks created Bakugo, where essentially he was able to control the amount of nitroglycerin he exerted from his pores and ignite them. Then you also have people like Todoroki, where his father had a fire-based quirk and his mother had an ice-based quirk. Where them two had a child, they were able to create him, who was able to control both ice and fire. So although it is much more common to have a child have a quirk exactly like the parent or a combination of both parents, there are also instances where a child will have a quirk completely different from both of their parents. And the example of that would be Tomura. Now, although we don't know Tomura Shigaraki's parents' quirk, we do know that his grandmother's quirk was called Float. And as we can see from her quirk and his quirk where it's decay, those are completely separate abilities. So it is possible for a child to have a quirk that's completely separate from both parents. So now that we understand how quirks can be manifested, we can also talk about the awakening that it's possible for certain quirks to get. So a quirk awakening is after a quirk is originally manifested. A quirk awakening is basically like the evolution or the expansion of someone's already existing quirk. A quirk awakening can typically happen through intense training or a lot of feelings or emotions that someone's going through. But in most cases of a quirk awakening, it typically happens through the user facing a life or death situation. This can have the person's quirk growing through rapid levels of strength or even providing new abilities that we didn't know the quirk to originally have. Two perfect examples of this would be Ochako and Toga. So for Toga, her original quirk was being able to consume someone's blood, and if she loved them enough, she would be able to turn into that person. Now, during the My Hero villain arc, when Toga was going through an extremely stressful time, her quirk started to awaken, where she was able to consume someone's blood and then use that person's abilities as well. Now with Ochako, her original quirk was called Zero Gravity, and with her quirk, she would be able to touch a person or an object and be able to affect the weight of that object. Now her quirk awakening started to happen during the final battle against Toga, where now she doesn't only have to be able to touch that object, whatever that object touches, she can also affect its weight. So during extreme times of stress or emotion or even training, someone's quirk can awaken to much greater heights than we ever thought before. So now that we understand quirks, where they came from, how quirks are developed, the different awakenings with quirks, let's talk about the different quirk types. So in My Hero, there are 3 different classifications of quirks. There's emitter type, transformation type, and mutation type. So let's start with the first and most common, emitter. So with the emitter type of quirk, it generally allows you to generate, control, or alter existing things in the world or the things around them. This type of quirk requires a conscious effort to be activated, and the things that fall under this type of quirk are Bakugo's explosion, Ochako's zero gravity, or Todoroki's fire and ice quirk. Now let's move on to the second most common quirk, and that's the mutation type of quirk. Now the people in My Hero who have mutation type of quirks are really unique because they don't have just one set of abilities. People with the mutation type of quirk generally have permanent alterations to their bodies, and often in My Hero, those mutations are animal based. Let's use our girl Mirko as a perfect example. So Mirko has a mutation quirk of a rabbit, which gives her multitude of abilities. It allows her to jump really high, it allows her fantastic hearing and the speed and agility of a rabbit. So because of the permanent alterations to their bodies actually give them multiple quirks, where some of the other quirk types generally only give you 1 or 2. Now the third and last quirk type is actually the least common, but it's still very powerful, and that's the transformation type quirk. Now the transformation type of quirk allows the user to go through a temporary change, granting them abilities when they change into that different form. Now this change is typically a conscious change that the user has to make to be able to gain the abilities that they need. 2 perfect examples would be Edgeshot, who's able to stretch his body paper thin and move around at the speed of sound. And the second example would be Kirishima, who's able to harden his skin to an extreme degree, becoming almost impregnable. So although it is the least common type of quirk, it is extremely beneficial and can provide the users with amazing abilities. Now, in addition to the 3 quirk types, you can actually have combinations of those quirk types as well. You could potentially have one parent who has an emitter type quirk and another parent who has a mutation type quirk to have a child who's somewhat a combination of both. A perfect example of that would be Tokoyami. Tokoyami has a mutation type quirk where he has the head of a bird and the body of a human, but he also has an emitter type quirk with dark shadow. So it's even possible to have a combination of quirk types to be able to create a new type of quirk. But that's pretty much it, everybody. That's everything you need to know about Quirks? See, I love My Hero Academia. Like I said, I think they have one of the most unique power systems in anime because it's actually more similar to comics, but I love how their power system works, and I love the fact that it gives every fight a unique aspect. But comment below and let me know what you think of Quirks. Do you like the power system of the My Hero Academia world? Let me know what your favorite quirk is. But with that, I got nothing left for this video. So, peace.